She was standing 3 feet away when the old woman's heart stopped. Not from a heart attack. From recognition. The girl, no young woman now, was reaching for a box of cereal on aisle 7. Long sleeves despite the Florida heat. Eyes that never quite lifted from the floor. Moving like someone who'd learned to be invisible. Marianne Delgado had greeted thousands of faces during her 7 years at this Tampa Walmart. She remembered the regulars. The Saturday afternoon shoppers. The woman and her quiet daughter who came in every single week, bought the same items, never smiled, never deviated from their routine. But today, October 24, 2020, Marianne was restocking the community bulletin board near the entrance when she saw it. A faded missing child poster. 15 years old. Age progressed photo of a girl who would now be 25. Ruby Mitchell. Disappeared October 14, 2005. Last seen at Woodbridge Elementary School. If you have any information. Marianne's hands went cold. The face on that poster. The quiet young woman in aisle 7. Same deep-set brown eyes. Same small scar above the left eyebrow. Same shape of the jaw. Impossible. Ruby Mitchell had been missing for 15 years. The case had gone cold. The billboards had come down. The searches had stopped. But Marianne Delgado was staring at a ghost. And that ghost was buying groceries with a woman who called herself her mother. What happened next would crack open one of the most disturbing cold cases in Florida history. Because Ruby Mitchell hadn't run away. She hadn't been killed. She'd been erased. Before we dive into how a grocery store greeter solved a 15-year-old mystery that stumped police, FBI agents, and a grieving mother who never stopped searching, welcome. If this is your first time here, this channel exists to tell you the true stories behind solved cold cases that shocked the world. Real investigations. Real breakthroughs. Real justice. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. These deep dives take weeks of research and your support keeps them coming. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. United States? United Kingdom? Canada? Philippines? Australia? We love knowing our community is global. Now, let's talk about how a 10-year-old girl vanished in broad daylight, and how she lived 15 years as someone else. Ruby Ann Mitchell was born March 3, 1995 in Tampa, Florida, to Jennifer and Marcus Mitchell. She was their only child. The center of their universe. Marcus worked as a warehouse supervisor at a logistics company near the port. Jennifer was a pediatric nurse at Tampa General Hospital, working the day shift so she could be home when Ruby got out of school. They lived in Seminole Heights, a working-class neighborhood with tree-lined streets, front porches, and the kind of rhythm where everyone knew everyone else's business. Ruby was 10 years old in the fall of 2005. 4th grade at Woodbridge Elementary. Brown hair she wore in a ponytail. A scar above her left eyebrow from falling off her bike when she was 6. She was small for her age, quiet in crowds but talkative at home, the kind of kid who read books under the covers with a flashlight past bedtime. She loved horses with the intensity only a 10-year-old can muster. Her bedroom walls were covered in horse posters. She collected plastic horse figurines, lined them up on her dresser in careful rows. She begged her parents for riding lessons they couldn't quite afford yet. She checked out every horse book the school library had. Her best friend was Kelsey Torres, a girl from her class. They were inseparable. Sleepovers every other weekend. Bike rides around the neighborhood. Whispered secrets and plans to grow up and buy a horse ranch together. Marcus had built Ruby a treehouse in the backyard oak tree the summer before she disappeared. She spent hours up there reading, daydreaming, watching birds. Jennifer coached Ruby's recreational softball team. Ruby wasn't particularly athletic, but she loved being part of the team. Loved the post-game snacks and the cheering and the feeling of belonging. The Mitchells were active at Seminole Heights Baptist Church. Sunday services. Wednesday night dinners. Community events. From the outside, they looked like every other suburban American family in 2005. Minivan in the driveway. Bills paid on time. No drama. No secrets. No enemies. Ruby had never run away. Never talked about wanting to leave. She had no history of behavioral problems, no trouble at school, no warning signs. She was, by every single measure, a happy, healthy, well-adjusted 10-year-old girl. Which made what happened on October 14, 2005, feel like a rip in reality itself. Because Ruby Mitchell didn't wander off. She didn't get lost. She was taken. In broad daylight. In a school parking lot. Surrounded by parents and teachers and security cameras. She was taken by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And for 15 years Ruby Mitchell would cease to exist. October 14, 2005, started like every other Friday. Jennifer Mitchell kissed Ruby goodbye that morning at 7:45 a.m. Watched her daughter climb onto the school bus, pink backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Ruby waved from the window. Jennifer waved back. That was the last normal moment of Jennifer Mitchell's life. Her shift at Tampa General Hospital was supposed to end at 4 p.m. Plenty of time to pick Ruby up from school at 4:30 p.m., the usual time. But at 3:50 p.m. a patient coded. Emergency. All hands on deck. Jennifer couldn't leave. At 4:38 p.m., she called Woodbridge Elementary from the hospital break room. Told the school secretary she'd be running late, maybe 15 minutes. The secretary said not to worry. Ruby could wait in the designated pickup zone. An aide would supervise. Jennifer left the hospital at 4:42 p.m. 5 minutes away in normal traffic. But October 14th was homecoming weekend at a nearby high school. Traffic was thick. Lights were long. Meanwhile, at Woodbridge Elementary, Ruby exited the building at 4:47 p.m. The school's exterior security camera captured her walking out the main entrance. Pink backpack. Ponytail. She was alone. Most of the other kids had already been picked up. The parking lot was nearly empty. A few stragglers waited near the curb where parents pulled up in the designated pickup lane. Ruby walked to the lamppost near the curb. She adjusted her backpack straps. Looked around. Waiting for her mom's minivan. At 4:49 p.m. a silver sedan, later identified as possibly a Honda Accord or Toyota Camry, common models, impossible to distinguish clearly on grainy 2005 security footage, pulled up slowly to the curb. Ruby approached the passenger side window. The camera angle, positioned above the school entrance, captured Ruby leaning toward the car window. She appeared to be talking to the driver. Then the camera panned left, an automatic sweep to cover another section of the parking lot. 8 seconds. When the camera panned back at 4:49 and 47 seconds p.m., Ruby was gone. The silver sedan was gone. Only Ruby's pink backpack remained on the pavement, contents spilled across the asphalt. A half-eaten granola bar. A spelling test with a gold star sticker. A library book about horse care. A purple pencil case. At 5:02 p.m., Jennifer Mitchell pulled into the Woodbridge Elementary parking lot. She saw the backpack first. Pink fabric against gray pavement. Her daughter's backpack. But no daughter. Jennifer's body went cold. She parked crooked, didn't even turn off the engine. She ran to the backpack, screaming Ruby's name. A campus aide heard her and came running. "Where's my daughter? Where's Ruby?" The aide's face went pale. She was just here. She was waiting right here. By 5:15 p.m., campus security was searching every bathroom, classroom, storage closet. By 5:30 p.m., Tampa police were on scene. By 6 p.m., an Amber Alert was issued across Florida. But the silver sedan had vanished into Tampa's evening traffic like smoke. And Ruby Mitchell, 10 years old, 4'6", 83 pounds, wearing jeans and a purple hoodie, had disappeared. No screams. No struggle. No witnesses who saw the actual moment of abduction. Just an empty curb. A scattered backpack. And a mother whose world had just ended. Jennifer Mitchell would replay those 12 minutes of lateness for the rest of her life. If she'd left the hospital 2 minutes earlier. If traffic had been lighter. If Ruby had waited inside the building instead of outside. But none of those things happened. And Ruby was gone. Detective Laura Hidalgo took point on the case within 2 hours of Ruby's disappearance. Hidalgo was a 12-year veteran of Tampa PD. She'd worked child abduction cases before. She knew the statistics that no one wanted to say out loud. The first 48 hours determined everything. After that, the odds of finding a missing child alive dropped catastrophically. By midnight on October 14th, the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team had arrived from Jacksonville. Search teams fanned out across Seminole Heights and surrounding neighborhoods. K-9 units. Helicopter flyovers with thermal imaging. Door-to-door canvassing within a 5-mile radius of the school. Jennifer and Marcus Mitchell sat in a Tampa police conference room, answering the same questions over and over. Did Ruby know any strangers? Had anyone been watching her? Following her? Any custody disputes? Family conflicts? Anyone who might have a grudge against you? The answers were always no. The Amber Alert blasted Ruby's face across every TV station, radio broadcast, highway billboard in Florida. Tips poured in. A woman in Clearwater swore she saw a girl matching Ruby's description at a gas station at 7 p.m. Police investigated. It was someone else's daughter. A man in Orlando called about a silver sedan speeding through a red light. Officers tracked the vehicle. Wrong car. Wrong driver. A psychic from Miami claimed Ruby was being held in a warehouse near the port. Search teams combed the area. Found nothing. Every lead was chased. Every lead evaporated. The school's security footage was enhanced, analyzed frame by FBI techs. The silver sedan's make and model couldn't be definitively confirmed. The license plate was obscured by glare. The driver was a shadow behind tinted windows. No fingerprints on Ruby's backpack except Ruby's own and her parents'. No DNA evidence. No witnesses who actually saw Ruby get into the car. The few parents still in the parking lot had been on their phones, focused on their own kids, distracted. Ruby had been taken in plain sight. And no one had seen. Detective Hidalgo interviewed every registered sex offender within a 50-mile radius. She pulled traffic camera footage from every major intersection between the school and the highways. She interviewed Ruby's teachers, classmates, neighbors, softball teammates, church members. Nothing pointed anywhere. By day 3, volunteers were searching wooded areas, drainage canals, abandoned buildings, anywhere a body might be hidden. They found nothing. Hidalgo worked 20-hour days. Coffee and adrenaline. Her eyes burned. Her hands shook. She kept Jennifer Mitchell's photo of Ruby on her desk. Ruby smiling, gap-toothed, holding a plastic palomino horse. She made a promise to that photo. I will find you. But by the end of the first week, the brutal truth was setting in. If Ruby Mitchell was still alive, she was being held by someone. And that someone had planned this carefully. The abduction was too clean. Too fast. Too confident. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was premeditated. Which meant the person who took Ruby had been watching her. Learning her routine. Waiting for the perfect moment. And they'd gotten away with it. The question Detective Hidalgo couldn't answer was the one that would haunt her for 15 years. Where was Ruby Mitchell? And who was holding her? Seminole Heights changed overnight. Parents who used to let their kids ride bikes to friends' houses now drove them door to door. Schools across Tampa hired additional security officers. Woodbridge Elementary installed more cameras, implemented stricter pickup protocols, required ID checks. The Mitchells' front lawn became a shrine. Teddy bears, flowers, candles and glass jars. Handmade signs that said "Bring Ruby home and we're praying for you." Vigils were held at Seminole Heights Baptist Church. Hundreds attended, holding candles, singing hymns, weeping for a little girl they'd never met but whose face was now burned into their collective consciousness. Jennifer Mitchell appeared on local news stations, then national broadcasts. Her face gaunt, eyes hollow, hands trembling as she held up Ruby's school photo. "Please. If someone has my daughter, please just let her go. She's just a baby. She needs her family. She needs her medicine." Jennifer lied about the medicine, hoping it might create urgency, might make whoever took Ruby think twice. "Please just bring her home." The community rallied. Volunteers distributed flyers at shopping centers, gas stations, highway rest stops. Local businesses donated to a reward fund. Within 2 weeks, it reached $50,000. But beneath the solidarity, fear and suspicion festered. Neighbors started eyeing strangers differently. A man who lived alone 3 streets over became the subject of whispered rumors. Police investigated him thoroughly. He was cleared. The rumors persisted anyway. Some people, quietly, shamefully, began to suspect the Mitchells themselves. Weren't parents always the first suspects? Maybe Jennifer's story about running late was a lie. Maybe Marcus had a temper no one knew about. Detective Hidalgo had cleared them immediately. Their alibis were airtight. Their grief was real. But gossip doesn't need evidence. Marcus Mitchell stopped going to work. He spent entire days driving around Tampa, staring at every silver sedan, every girl with brown hair. He'd pull up next to cars at red lights, peer through windows, desperate and unhinged. Jennifer couldn't sleep. She left Ruby's bedroom exactly as it was. Bed unmade. Stuffed animals arranged on the pillow. Homework still on the desk. She'd sit in there for hours, holding Ruby's favorite horse figurine, talking to the empty air. The marriage began to crack. Marcus wanted to believe Ruby was alive. Jennifer, with her nurse's understanding of statistics and trauma, was quietly preparing herself for the worst. They stopped talking about it. They stopped talking at all. After a month, the news cameras left. The volunteers dwindled. The flyers faded in the rain. Life for everyone except Jennifer and Marcus Mitchell slowly returned to normal. But for them, time stopped on October 14, 2005. And they remained frozen there, waiting. Detective Laura Hidalgo never closed Ruby Mitchell's file. Officially, the case went cold after 6 months. No new leads. No suspects. No evidence. The investigation stalled, then stopped. But Hidalgo kept a cardboard box in her office. Inside, copies of the security footage, witness statements, the list of every silver Honda Accord and Toyota Camry registered in Florida in 2005, Ruby's school photo, Jennifer Mitchell's contact information. She reviewed the contents every few months, looking for something she'd missed. Some detail overlooked in the initial chaos. She found nothing. By 2008, Hidalgo had been promoted to sergeant. By 2010, she was lead detective on dozens of other cases. Murders, assaults, robberies. Her caseload was overwhelming. But Ruby Mitchell haunted her. Every October 14th, Hidalgo visited Jennifer Mitchell. Jennifer, now divorced and living alone in the same house where Ruby had grown up, kept the vigil alive. She never moved. Never packed away Ruby's room. Never stopped hoping. She aged a decade in 5 years. Her hair went gray. Her face hollowed out. She worked her nursing shifts, came home to an empty house and waited. Marcus had moved to North Carolina by 2009. He couldn't stay in Tampa where every street corner, every school, every park reminded him of what he'd lost. The reward money grew to $100,000. Tips still trickled in. A sighting in Georgia. A rumor of a girl in Alabama. A psychic's vision of Ruby being held in a basement in Tennessee. Every lead was investigated. Every lead was nothing. Hidalgo began to wonder if Ruby had been trafficked across state lines, sold into a network impossible to trace, or if she'd been killed within hours of the abduction and her body hidden somewhere they'd never find. The not knowing was its own kind of torture. In 2015, on the 10th anniversary of Ruby's disappearance, the Tampa Tribune ran a retrospective piece. Hidalgo gave an interview. "I think about Ruby every day," she said. "I think about who she'd be now, 20 years old, maybe in college, maybe starting a career. I think about her mother, still living in that house, still waiting. And I promise as long as I'm in this job, Ruby's case will never be closed. Someone out there knows what happened. And someday somehow we'll find the truth." It was a vow spoken into the void. But she meant every word. By 2020, Ruby Mitchell had been missing for 15 years. The billboards were long gone. The news coverage had stopped. The public had moved on to newer tragedies, fresher mysteries. Ruby became one of thousands of cold cases. A name in a database. A file in a box. Hidalgo, now a lieutenant, was weeks away from retirement. She'd accepted that she would probably never know what happened to Ruby Mitchell. And then, on a Saturday afternoon in October 2020, her phone rang. A Walmart greeter in Tampa had seen something. And everything changed. Marianne Delgado was 62 years old and worked as a greeter at the Walmart Supercenter on North Dale Mabry Highway in Tampa. She'd held the job for 7 years. She liked it. Liked greeting people, handing out carts, chatting with regulars, being part of the daily rhythm of the community. Marianne was a widow. A grandmother to 4. And she had a gift. She remembered faces. Not in a creepy way. Just in the way some people have perfect pitch or can solve math problems in their heads. Marianne saw a face once and remembered it. In September 2020, she began noticing a young woman who came into the store every Saturday afternoon around 2 p.m. The woman was in her mid-20s, thin, pale, always wearing long sleeves despite the Florida heat. She never made eye contact. Never smiled. She moved through the store like a shadow, staying close to the older woman she was always with. The older woman, 50s, graying hair, stern expression, did all the talking, all the shopping, all the decision-making. The younger woman just followed. Something about her bothered Marianne. The way she never spoke. The way her eyes stayed down. The way she seemed to shrink into herself when anyone looked at her. Then, on October 24, 2020, Marianne was restocking the community bulletin board near the store entrance. Among the flyers for lost pets and yard sales and church events was a faded missing child poster. Ruby Mitchell. Age 10 when she disappeared in 2005. Age progressed photo showing what she might look like at 25. Marianne's breath caught. The face on that poster. The quiet young woman who came in every Saturday. Same eyes. Same cheekbones. Same small scar above the left eyebrow. Marianne's hands started shaking. She pulled out her phone. Searched Ruby Mitchell Tampa. Found articles from 2005. Found the age-progressed images released in 2015. Found the Tampa police tip line. She called immediately. "Tampa police, how can I help you? I need to report something about Ruby Mitchell. The girl who disappeared in 2005. I think I've seen her. I think she's alive." The dispatcher transferred her to the cold case unit. Lieutenant Laura Hidalgo picked up. Hidalgo had taken thousands of tips about Ruby Mitchell over the years. Most were well-meaning but wrong. Mistaken identities. Wishful thinking. But something in Marianne Delgado's voice made her listen. She comes in every Saturday around 2 p.m. She's always with an older woman, maybe her mother, but it doesn't feel right. The girl looks terrified. She never speaks. She never looks at anyone. And I swear to you, Lieutenant, she looks exactly like the age-progressed photo. Same face. Same scar above her eyebrow. I've been a greeter for 7 years. I remember faces. And I'm telling you, that's Ruby Mitchell. Hidalgo's heart was pounding. Can you get me security footage? I can try. Within 2 hours, Hidalgo had Walmart security footage from the past 3 months. She watched hours of recordings. And then she saw her. A young woman. Mid-20s. Brown hair. Moving through the aisles like she was afraid of being noticed. And the face. Oh God, the face. It matched the age progression image perfectly. Hidalgo called the FBI. Called the forensic imaging team. They compared the Walmart footage to Ruby's childhood photos and the age-progressed renders. Facial recognition software gave it a 94% probability match. Hidalgo assembled a team. Saturday, October 31, 2020. Undercover officers positioned throughout the Walmart. Marianne Delgado at her usual post by the entrance. At 2:17 p.m., the young woman and the older woman entered the store. Marianne gave a discreet nod. The officers moved into position. And Detective Laura Hidalgo, after 15 years of waiting, prepared to find out if Ruby Mitchell was finally coming home. The arrest happened at the self-checkout. Patricia Langford and the young woman she called her daughter were scanning groceries when 6 plainclothes officers closed in. "Excuse me, ma'am. Tampa Police. We need to ask you a few questions." Patricia Langford's face went white. The young woman looked up, confused, terrified. They were escorted, not arrested yet, just detained, to Tampa Police headquarters. Separated into different interview rooms. Patricia immediately requested a lawyer. Refused to speak. The young woman sat across from Lieutenant Hidalgo and a trauma specialist named Dr. Elaine Porter. "What's your name?" Hidalgo asked gently. The woman's voice was barely a whisper. "Rebecca." "Rebecca what?" "Langford. Rebecca Langford." "How old are you, Rebecca?" 25. "Where were you born?" I don't know. My mom homeschooled me. We've always lived in Hernando County. Do you have a birth certificate?" Rebecca hesitated. "I don't think so. My mom handles all that." Hidalgo slid a photo across the table. Ruby Mitchell's school picture from 2005. "Do you recognize this girl?" Rebecca stared at the photo. Her face clouded. "No. Who is she?" "Her name is Ruby Mitchell. She disappeared 15 years ago." Rebecca's hands started shaking. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because we think you might be Ruby Mitchell." Rebecca's eyes went wide. That's not possible. I'm Rebecca. My mom's name is Patricia. We've lived in the same house my whole life." But her voice wavered. Dr. Porter leaned forward. "Rebecca, do you have any memories from before you lived in Hernando County?" Sometimes I have dreams. A treehouse. Horses. A different house. But my mom says I was sick when I was little. She says my memories are confused." Hidalgo felt her chest tighten. "We'd like to take a DNA sample." "With your permission." Rebecca nodded, still trembling. Meanwhile, forensic teams executed a warrant on Patricia Langford's home in Hernando County, 60 miles north of Tampa. What they found was a prison disguised as a house. Doors with locks on the outside. Windows nailed shut. One small bedroom with a twin bed, a single dresser, no mirrors, no personal items, no photos. And in Patricia's bedroom, hidden in the back of a closet, a box. Inside, newspaper clippings about Ruby Mitchell's disappearance. A child's pink backpack. And a forged birth certificate in the name of Rebecca Langford, issued 3 months after Ruby vanished. DNA results came back in 36 hours. Comparison between the woman who called herself Rebecca Langford and Jennifer Mitchell's DNA on file from the original investigation. 99.97% match. Rebecca Langford was Ruby Mitchell. When Hidalgo told her, Ruby collapsed. Dr. Porter held her as she sobbed. "I want my mom," Ruby whispered through tears. "I want to go home." But after 15 years of being told she was someone else, Ruby didn't know which home she meant. The house in Hernando County, where she'd lived as Rebecca. Or the house in Seminole Heights, where a woman named Jennifer Mitchell had waited 15 years for a daughter who'd been stolen. Ruby Mitchell had been found. But the girl who disappeared in 2005 no longer existed. In her place was someone fractured. Someone who'd been forced to forget who she was. And now she had to remember. Patricia N. Langford was arrested and charged with kidnapping, child abduction, false imprisonment, and identity fraud. She refused to speak during interrogation. Sat silent, stone-faced, across from detectives for hours. Her lawyer advised continued silence. But prosecutors pieced together her story through evidence, surveillance, and testimony. Patricia had been a substitute teacher in Tampa in the early 2000s. She'd worked at multiple schools across the district, including Woodbridge Elementary. She'd been in her late 40s, divorced, childless. Friends described her as obsessed with wanting children. She tried IVF, tried adoption, tried fostering. All unsuccessfully. Her marriage collapsed in 2004 under the weight of infertility and her husband's frustration with her obsession. By 2005, Patricia was isolated, depressed, fixated on motherhood as the only thing that could save her. She'd been in therapy. The records showed diagnoses of major depressive disorder and attachment issues. Then, in September 2005, Patricia substitute taught at Woodbridge Elementary for 2 weeks. She saw Ruby Mitchell. Quiet, sweet, always reading. And something in Patricia's fractured mind made a decision. October 14, 2005, was not random. Patricia had learned Ruby's routine. Knew when school let out. Knew Ruby's mother was sometimes late. She rented a house in rural Hernando County under a fake name in late September. Paid cash. On October 14, she drove the silver sedan, a Honda Accord she'd borrowed from an acquaintance who later had no idea it had been used in a kidnapping, to Woodbridge Elementary. She waited until Ruby was alone. She told Ruby there'd been an accident. That Ruby's mother had been hurt and sent Patricia to pick her up. Ruby, recognizing Patricia's face from school, trusted her. She got in the car. Patricia drove north to Hernando County. She destroyed Ruby's clothing, cut her hair, told her that her parents had died in the accident. That Patricia was her mother now. That her name was Rebecca. Ruby was 10. Terrified. Isolated. Patricia homeschooled her using manipulated curriculum. Convinced Ruby that her memories of another life were hallucinations from trauma. No internet. No phone. No friends. No outside contact. Ruby grew up believing she was Rebecca Langford. Patricia's lawyer attempted an insanity defense. Argued delusional attachment disorder. But forensic psychologists testified that Patricia knew what she was doing was wrong. The hidden clippings. The forged documents. The isolation. The control. This wasn't delusion. This was calculated abduction. In December 2020, Patricia Langford pleaded guilty to all charges. She was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. At sentencing, she was given the opportunity to speak. She looked at Jennifer Mitchell, sitting in the front row beside Ruby. And Patricia said, "Rebecca needed me. I gave her a home." The courtroom was silent. Jennifer Mitchell's face was stone. Ruby wept. Patricia Langford was led away. She never apologized. She never acknowledged what she'd done. Because in her broken mind, she'd saved Ruby. And that delusion would follow her into prison for the rest of her life. Jennifer Mitchell hadn't slept in 3 days. Not since the call from Lieutenant Hidalgo. "We found her. We found Ruby. She's alive." Jennifer had collapsed on the floor, sobbing so hard she thought her ribs might crack. Ruby was alive. 15 years. And she was alive. The reunion was scheduled at Tampa Police Headquarters. Private room. Trauma counselors present. Jennifer stood outside the door, shaking. Dr. Porter came out. "She's very fragile, Mrs. Mitchell. She doesn't remember you. But she's willing to meet you." Jennifer nodded, tears already streaming. The door opened. And there she was. Ruby. 25 years old now. Thin. Wary. Eyes too old for her face. But alive. Jennifer's voice broke. "Ruby?" Ruby's face crumpled. I don't remember you. But they say you're my mom." Jennifer crossed the room slowly. Hands shaking. She stopped a few feet away, giving Ruby space. "You are my daughter. You are my Ruby. You loved horses. You had a treehouse. You collected plastic horse figurines. Your favorite color was purple. You used to read books under the covers with a flashlight. You." Ruby's breath hitched. "I remember a treehouse. I thought it was a dream." "It wasn't a dream, baby. It was real. You were real." Jennifer opened her arms. Ruby hesitated, then stepped forward. They held each other, and Jennifer sobbed into her daughter's shoulder. 15 years of grief and horror and hope poured out in that embrace. Ruby cried too. For reasons she didn't fully understand. For the mother she didn't remember but somehow recognized in the deepest part of herself. "I'm sorry," Ruby whispered. "I'm sorry I don't remember." "It's okay. It's okay. We'll take it slow. But I'm here. I'm not leaving. I will never stop being your mother." Ruby nodded, tears streaming. "I want to remember. I want to know who I was." Jennifer pulled back, cupped Ruby's face in her hands. "We'll find her together. I promise." And for the first time in 15 years, Jennifer Mitchell felt something she thought had died the day Ruby disappeared. Hope. Ruby's recovery was not a fairy tale. She moved in with Jennifer, but the house felt foreign. Her childhood bedroom, preserved for 15 years, belonged to a stranger. Therapy became Ruby's new routine. 3 times a week. PTSD. Dissociative identity struggles. Severe anxiety. She had nightmares. Panic attacks. Struggled to trust anyone. She grieved for the years stolen from her. The childhood. The teenage years. The friendships. The milestones. She also grieved for Rebecca Langford. The identity she'd been forced to inhabit. Letting go of Rebecca felt like losing someone. Jennifer struggled too. She'd imagined reuniting with her 10-year-old daughter. Instead, she was learning to know a traumatized adult who barely remembered her. They attended therapy together. Looked at old photo albums. Jennifer told stories about Ruby's childhood. Some memories came back in fragments. The treehouse. The horses. Kelsey Torres. But most remained lost. Marcus Mitchell returned to Tampa. He and Jennifer attempted to co-parent their adult daughter. Ruby met her father with the same confused distance. But slowly, connections formed. Ruby legally reclaimed her birth name. Got her GED. Started community college classes. She reconnected with Kelsey Torres, now a mother of 2, who wept when they met again. The community rallied. But the attention was overwhelming. Ruby avoided media. She wanted privacy. Space to heal without being a spectacle. Jennifer became her fiercest protector. 3 years later, in 2023, Ruby gave one interview. "I'm not the girl I was," she said. "But I'm also not the person I was forced to be. I'm somewhere in between, figuring out who Ruby Mitchell really is. And that's okay. I survived. That's enough for now." The Ruby Mitchell case remains one of the most extraordinary solved cold cases in modern history. 15 years of silence. Broken by a stranger who paid attention. It raises profound questions. How does a child vanish in plain sight? How does a captor hide in the open for over a decade? How many other missing children might be living under assumed names, memories erased, identities stolen? Detective Hidalgo retired in 2023. She still keeps Ruby's case file. "Never give up," she said in her retirement speech. "Never stop looking. Somewhere, someone knows something. And sometimes it's the smallest detail, a stranger's memory, a greeter's instinct, that changes everything." Jennifer Mitchell advocates for missing children now. She speaks at conferences. Supports cold case initiatives. She reminds people that time doesn't heal all wounds. But it doesn't mean hope is lost. Ruby Mitchell lives quietly now. Away from the public eye. Building a life that's hers. Not defined by what was taken. But by what she chooses to create. The lingering question remains. How many girls like Ruby are still out there? Living as someone else. Waiting for someone to see them. The Ruby Mitchell case is a testament to survival. To a mother's relentless love. To a detective who refused to close the file. And to a Walmart greeter who trusted her gut. It's a story of horror and hope. And it reminds us all. Pay attention. Notice people. Remember faces. Because sometimes the girl in the checkout line isn't who she thinks she is. And you might be the only person who can bring her home. Ruby Mitchell vanished at 10 years old. She came home at 25. And in those 15 years the world never stopped looking. That's the power of never forgetting a name.